What is Meta You? It is the ability to go beyond your limitations and beyond your current career and create the life and the business that you really want to create.
All right, so we're actually going to bring in Aaron Novello now, and I'm completely excited for this one. Aaron, can you hear me?
I can, brother. How are you, Justin?
Excellent. I know you don't know this, but I saw you on a few podcasts. I saw you with Brian Charlesworth, and because of me seeing those, I actually purchased most of your coaching programs.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
So I feel like I'm talking to somebody I already know, even though this is our first face-to-face. But Aaron, I appreciate having you on because not only are you an amazing coach, have an incredible coaching company, but you also are in a high level of production.
Yeah.
You know, you're the real deal. And I also, and hopefully we have time to get into this today, I can tell on your side, there's a lot of personal growth, not just professional growth, but to me, it seems like you have a good energy, a happy vibe. Like it seems like you figured out how not only to do the business right, but to do life right. Yeah. So with that being said, happy to have you here. And if you want to give a small introduction about who you are and why you're here, that would be amazing.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate your kind words. It's the highest compliment I can get when somebody like you, says those types of things. And I'm also appreciative to be here with all those that are in attendance. And, I find it very interesting that I be invited to something like this, because if people really knew me, like truly knew me, they would know in the first calendar year, Justin, that I sold real estate. I only made $13,000.
Wow.
That is not something people would put you on a panel to talk about. That is not something they would invite you on a mastermind group to teach them your words of wisdom, right, on how you actually accomplish that. And the question is kind of like, well, how's that possible? How do you go from doing $13,000 in GCI in a year and then a decade later grossing over $1 million a year selling real estate while simultaneously coaching 70 plus agents throughout the country, 7 of which earn, 7+ figures?
Yeah.
Well, I read in a book one time that you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. And when I first read it,
say that one more time, Aaron. Aaron, say. I don't want to miss that. Don't skip over that. Like, let that sink in. Say that one more time.
So you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. And the person who said that is Ray Dalio. He's one of the largest. He owns the largest hedge fund in the world. He started in his garage. He's like top 30 wealthiest people on planet Earth.
Read the book. Everyone out right now, download it on Audible, and you'll hear this man's powerful voice, and you'll understand why he's a billionaire and you're not.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting just because when I read that, when I first heard, like, you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce good outcome, I was like, oh, that's cute. That's kind of clever, right? But as time progressed and I marinated on it more and more, I was like, gosh, that is insanely profound in every area in my life, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, financial, right? I need to be able to see what is, not the way somebody else is telling me that it is or the way I would like it to be, but the way it actually is. And once I can see what is, then I can make decisions in accordance with what is. And that's going to increase the probability that I will get the outcomes that I want. So in that first calendar year, people say all the time, like, knowledge equals power. It's like, okay, well, if that's true, which to the best of my knowledge it is, it's really applied knowledge.
Yes.
The question is what if I'm operating under the wrong knowledge? Then I'm not going to be producing the outcomes that I want, right?
Yeah.
So in that first calendar year,
externally or internally, the story you tell yourself or about the market or what you're capable of, if you're operating on bad information, you are going to get a terrible result.
That's right. And the challenge is in our game, we get bombarded, right? Like absolutely onslaught bombarded by all these people trying to tell us what is true. Like, what is the actual truth of this game? So I had the good fortune where after that first calendar year, I got an accurate assessment, right? I could see clearly what this game is. And once I did that, then I was able to devote my time and energy and effort in the appropriate spots. And that allowed me to continue to grow my business and expand my business primarily through listing property in high volume, right? And the other thing that's true, though, is if people really knew me, truly knew me, after I got that accurate assessment, I was at like 15 closed and pending, like 3 months in, and on track to do about 50 deals, which is substantially better than the year previously. And then I got a phone call. And the phone call was from my dad. and he was kind of hyperventilating on the other end. And he shared with me that my mom had just had a brain bleed. She, had a blood vessel burst in her brain. It left her kind of handicapped on one side of her body, and she was being rushed into emergency surgery. And for a lack of a better way of describing it, it's a craniectomy. They take a table saw, they saw open your skull, they take it off, find out where it's bleeding. They cauterize it with heat, put your skull back on, and suture it together with industrial style staples. Okay.
So this is serious. Yeah.
Serious stuff. And he told me on the phone, he's like, look, she has a 50-50 chance, the neurosurgeon said, of making it. So you need to stop what you're doing and come home immediately. So within a week, I shut down the business, gave away all the listings and all the pendings, moved, and started over from scratch.
Wow.
And then what I did, and I don't tell that story for the people that are kind of listening for sympathy, because the story of one is the story of all. What I am very well aware of is if we did a survey, if I was able to see you guys and ask you to raise hands, and I said, hey, how many of you guys have been on a receiving call like that? You know somebody who has, or you've overcome something that was physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally hard or challenging in your life, the whole room would be filled with hands up.
Yes. So
it's not what happens to us that makes the difference in outcomes we produce. It's what we do with what happens to us.
Yes.
And what I did with what happened to me, right, is I took this mental map, right, this guidepost of this accurate assessment of reality of what this game was, and systematically just went to work. And within 5 years of making that move, I was doing 100 transactions a year with 80% of it being listings sold.
Say that again, Aaron.
Yeah, so within 5 years, and this was, mind you, 2007, 8, 9, when like everybody's like, this is terrible and the world's like crashing, right? I grew my business by 25% year over year.
Yes. And
got up to 100 transactions 5 years later after making that move, and 80% of that business was listing sold.
So why, Aaron, are you one of the very few that can find your guidepost, connect to reality, have those things that happen to us all, that phone call on the other end that we do not want to receive, and you take all of that and channel that into not only an incredible business, but an incredible life? Is it something you can teach? Is it something you can train? Like, why do some have the ability to do that and some don't?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think part of it has to do with meaning.
Yeah.
So by that, what I mean is we have the ability as humans, which is pretty unique, where we can give things meaning, and we can either give it a very empowering meaning or we can give it a disempowering meaning. And the way most people imagine the way that this kind of existence is they imagine there's an event and then there's my response or my reaction to that event. But there's actually a step in between. There's an event, there's my opinion or my judgment about the event, then there's my response or my reaction. So what I'm actually doing is I'm actually responding to my opinion or my judgment, not the actual event itself.
You're not responding to the event, you're responding to your opinion or viewpoint on what happened.
That's right. So the meaning that I gave it,
yes,
right, was the following. So I had been spending some time in personal growth and development and turning myself into somebody who could, accomplish goals externally. So the meaning I gave it is like, hey, I'm fully equipped to help my mom. Yeah. Right? I had her writing in what I called, her affirmation journal. Like, if it's to be, it's up to me. I would call her every morning, right? Every morning at 7 o'clock and say, hey, you got a second chance at life. Not a lot of people do. The great news is it didn't happen on this side of your brain, because if it did, you would have lost language and speech and you wouldn't know who I am. That didn't happen, right? So I was equipped with tools, right? So it was the story that I told myself. And the other story that I tell myself, and I'm aware that it's a story, Justin, for sure. But like, if you put people into battle, right? Let's say you have 100 people that go into battle.
Yeah.
90 of them shouldn't be there. They're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? They're the type of people, when they're on the front line, the fight starts to go down, they wet their pants, like it's not for them, okay? 9 of them, though, are soldiers. And we're glad that they are, because the battle rises and falls on the soldiers, right? One of them, though, one of them's a warrior. And the warrior is the one that makes sure, A, the mission gets complete, and B, as many people can come back as possible, do it. So the story that I tell myself, and I'm aware it's just a story, is that I'm the warrior. It's my duty and obligation. Like, this is not something that I do, for strokes or accolades or little awards. Like, I feel like it's my duty and obligation to protect my family. And the way you do that in this planet, we don't live on a political planet. We live on an economic one. So my duty and obligation is to be as successful as I possibly can be, because in doing so, I create security for those that are around me.
So first of all, Aaron, I got chills when you said that. So I appreciate the story and I appreciate the meaning behind it. Aaron, did you create your warrior story or have you always been a warrior?
No, I think that's interesting. So I think what's true is I had some experiences when I was younger that I felt like helpless, or I felt like I didn't have like control. And I think what's true is that that anger mixed with a little bit of fear, it's rocket fuel. And the way I describe it is it's kind of like being like Iron Man. If you notice Iron Man in the center of his chest, or Iron Woman, there's like this device, like it's like a certain type of element that gives him his power.
Yes.
And what I'm aware of is, tapping into that and channeling that, right? Because I'm aware that people, oftentimes they approach me and they want to talk about strategy. How do I do this? How do I say this? Which is cool. Like I have no problem sharing them strategy. But if you want to accomplish something, there's three different there's elements of that. One is your state, two is your story, and three is your strategy. Yeah. And what's interesting is it's misplaced to only focus on strategy, because what I'm aware of is the main event is state. Because if you get yourself in the right state of being, you will come up with the right story and the right strategy. So, I just said to myself, listen, this is unacceptable to me. This is not okay. I am not going to have this be my experience moving forward. I don't know what the way is, but I'm going to either find the way or I'm going to make the way. And once you get to that place, then, the story, I'm the warrior, or the strategy, I can go figure out and mastermind or talk to other people on how to do something, falls into place.
Aaron, so you're preaching to the choir, man. This is what I believe. It's state first. I mean, if you're not in the right emotional state, it doesn't matter if you spend a decade learning the how. You're never going to take the appropriate action. And if you do, you're not going to do it correctly. These are the powerful people in this world, the ones that can tap into that emotional state, and they understand that you create it. It's not given.
Yeah, and it's managed. So first of all, I love when you did this, because you're like, okay, this is the center of where that's coming from. But also two, like what I'm aware of is most people don't spend enough time managing state. Yeah. They just wake up, drink some coffee, hop on the phone. It's like, nah, dude, there's a whole, for me, there's a whole ritual that's involved for me to get myself kind of primed for that state, so I could go out in the world in that state of being, right?
Aaron, I've loved the direction of this conversation. It went a little bit different direction than I thought. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to do. I want to leave it up to you, man. You got 15 minutes to just get your message or your story out. And whether that's about state, whether that's about crushing Q4, whether that's an agent listening right now that is maybe where you were your second year in real estate and is like, I'm not going to accept this anymore. I am going to find the way. I am going to create that warrior. What words would you speak to that agent?
Yeah, so what I would share with them first is that I really do believe that business is not a material journey. I believe that it's a spiritual one. And I think what happens is you have to evolve at each step in the process. And you're forced to evolve, right? And it's uncomfortable. It's kind of like if you think about a caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. When that happens, if you look at the butterfly doing that, trying to push its way out of the cocoon, that doesn't look like it's fun, okay? It's really difficult. It's imagine waking up and you're encapsulated in a case and now I gotta break out, and you try to break out and nothing happens, right? It takes a lot of and moving, right? In order to evolve to that next level. And then the other thing that I would share with them is patience, because it takes time. I know we all want it immediately. The Latin derivative of the word patience, it's not time oriented, it's patenti. What it means is to suffer. So if I don't have what I want, that's a form of suffering. So your ability to be patient is your ability to endure suffering, right? Is to be persistently and consistently doing the things that need to be done without having physically the external manifestation or rewards of it. And then the other thing I'd like to share with them is just this blueprint, this mental map that I, again, used and continue to use to grow my business primarily through listing property in high volume. Because I'm still very much so in production, guys. Yeah. What I'm aware of is we're at 151 closing pending year to date. I also coach 70 agents throughout the United States internationally, and we're able to do all of that simultaneously, right? So the way that we do that is by sticking and adhering to this kind of what I call the Four Noble Truths. So whenever I talk about the Four Noble Truths, I think about the movie The Matrix. Okay. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, Justin, but in that movie, the character, his name's Neo, and he's living in an alternative reality, but he doesn't know it. And he gets visited by some vigilantes. The first one is Trinity, who catches his eye, right? Because she's beautiful. The second is Morpheus, and he's the leader of these vigilantes. And this culminates in a scene. And it's a scene where Morpheus offers Neo an opportunity, and he holds his hands out like this. And in one, he has the blue pill, and the other one, he has the red pill. And what he says to Neo is, hey, if you take this blue pill, you will forget you ever met me. You'll forget you ever met Trinity. You will wake up in your bed in blissful ignorance that you live in an alternative reality, and that'll be your life. If you take the red pill, I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Now, when Neo's presented with an opportunity to hear the truth, he does what most of us do, is he hesitates. Yeah. In the Bible, it says we would prefer to be lied to than to be told the truth. That's very accurate, because when you're told the truth, you're not as fast as you are, as quick as you are, as smart as you are, as cool as you are, right? Like, in order to grow, you have to be wrong about something.
Yes.
Right? So he hesitates, but then Morpheus leans in and says, hey, remember, all I'm offering you is the truth, nothing more and nothing less. And in that moment, Neo, he switches course, he's reaching for the blue pill, grabs the red, swallows it, smashed into the harsh reality of his existence. So let's imagine for a moment that I'm the Morpheus of real estate. I'm providing you guys, Neos and Neo-ettes, an opportunity to take the blue pill or the red pill. Now, if we were in a room together, I would shout at you and say, which pill do you want? And you would scream back at me, the red pill. So let's imagine that happened. You take the red pill, bam, you get locked into the harsh reality of what this game is. So the first thing you need to know is that this is a sales business. It is no different than selling books door to door, knives door to door, or subscriptions over the phone. Okay? And as such, it has to follow the same sales process. Number one in the sales process is you got to prospect. I don't care how you do it. If you do it like this, I don't care if you're buying leads. I don't care if you're on lead platforms like HomeLight, Fast Expert, Effective Agents. You have to prospect every day. A day not spent prospecting is a day you are not in business. Okay? Number two is you have to have the skill of being able to set appointments. I don't know about you, if you've noticed when you speak to people, they're not like, you know what, Justin, why don't you come on over and list me up at 6% right now? Like, that doesn't happen. You have to have a skill of asking questions to determine if they have a need for your service, and then closing, right, for the appointment. The second part of the process is you got to be able to pre-qualify those appointments, sifting through and pulling out motivation, any objections that may come up, right? Like, what's their goals and objectives? What are they trying to accomplish? So that way, A, I'm fully prepared and equipped to be able to serve them. And B, I dramatically increase the probability that when I see them, they're going to use one of these and sign a contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I got to go and present. I have to give them a compelling reason to choose me versus somebody else. Because here's what's interesting, guys. In your offices, there's like 300 agents. Multiply that by like, I don't know, 50,000, you know what I'm saying? In your MLS system, they have a lot of options to choose from. Everybody's grandma, sister, uncle is an agent. Yeah. So I have to be able to give them a compelling reason to choose me versus somebody else. Then I have to be able to handle objections and close.
Is objections the fourth truth?
No, so these are all part of number one. This is the sales process. This is a sales business, so it must follow the same sales process. This is the sales process.
Got it.
I got to handle objections and close. And then the last one is if it doesn't sell, I have to lower the price. I have to have the skill of being able to help people self-discover that their expectations are not realistic in the current market and that they need to make an adjustment. Notice, prospecting is an activity. All the rest are skills.
Yeah.
Hear me. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Okay? So that's what I would want these agents to be clear on.
It's a 5-course class in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So much truth there, man. I appreciate number one.
Yeah. Number two is that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. I'm going to say that again. The money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. Now, that doesn't mean we give people crappy service. Okay? I want you to understand that that good service is expected. You shouldn't get a pat on the back and an award for the stroke for giving good service, right? Just like, so technology is changing your expectation. Your expectation, Justin, is when you push the button on Amazon, it gets delivered in a day or two.
Yes.
Your expectation is when you push the button on Uber, the car's going to show up in 5 minutes. Your expectation is when you go to the grocery store, they have groceries. Like, that's the expectation. You don't walk in the grocery store and you're like, yeah, they got groceries today. It's fucking fantastic. Like, no, you don't do that, right? Yeah. It's your expectation, just like they expect you to answer the phone and know what you're doing. Yeah. So that's not where the money is. The money is learning how to sell the service. So if we were in the room together, 1,000 people, I'd say, hey guys, we all have the same real estate license, right? We can all perform the same service. Awesome. Do we all make the same amount of money? Why not? Some people know how to sell the service better than others. See, I didn't get this first calendar year, Justin. That first year, people were telling me to wear my name tag and go to the grocery store. They were telling me to work with buyers, hold open houses. Like, they weren't telling me that, yo, this is a sales business, so it has to follow the sales process, and the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. So if that's what's true, I should spend all of my time learning how to sell the service. Okay. Noble truth number 3 is that all the leverage is on the listing side. All of it. Period. That's where all the top producers hang out. Whoever controls the inventory controls the market. And what I'm aware of, you can't be world-class at both. Wow. I had to make a decision. So, Justin, I haven't put a person in my car in 12 years. I don't own an e-key. Yeah. That's how committed I am to listing property. So if somebody called me on my data, like, I couldn't even show the property to them, right? Because, again, all the leverage on the listing side. And as our game changes, because it's changing aggressively, right? Sharp elbow competitors are pushing into our game. They're finding people on the internet first. They're charging us referral fees, right? The net's being compressed. All that stuff's happening. You're noticing that the buyer side is getting less and less valuable. Yes. The people that are on your team, they make, buyer's agents, they get 50% of the commission. You see Zillow saying, hey, we're buying houses now. And instead of giving them the agents to list, we're going to pay people to do that. You see Redfin like charging salaried for agents. So the buy side has always been not as valuable as a skill, but technology is exacerbating it, making it more. And if I'm a prodigious provider of data, which is what I really call myself, I'm not a listing agent, I'm a prodigious provider of data. I provide the system, MLS, Zillow, Red, all these things that need it like oxygen, okay? Without listings, they die. So if I continue to be a prodigious provider of data, I will continue to be handsomely rewarded. How much I'm rewarded, that might change a little bit, I think, over time, but I'll continue because the system needs me. Trust me, if they could figure out a way to get you out of there and not take listings from you, they would. Okay? So that's noble truth number 3, is that all the leverage on the listing side. And then noble truth number 4 is you only get paid to do 4 things, and 4 things only. Prospect, lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. PLAN. That's it. Everything else is an administrative activity, right? Wow. So the difference between me and other agents, they ask me all the time, they're like, how do you do that, bro? Like, how do you list 10, 12, 15 properties a month and coach 70 people at the same time? And my answer to them is, I have nothing else to do. So I have a team, right, that are around me, administrative team, that handle all of the administrative work. So what most agents do is they confuse income servicing activities with income producing activities. They think doing paperwork, right, or hanging out online or something, like that's their job. Like, no, your job is to be in the presence of prospects. That's what salespeople do, right? So they spend 10, maybe 20%, that's being generous, let's say 10% of their time doing the prospecting activity, and like 90% of their time doing income servicing and think they're doing their job. No. So the difference is I flip that. So I spend 90% of my time, PLAN, the only thing I add to that is coaching. And I spend 10% of my time in admin. So that's the mental map. And if you guys, I'm telling you, like if you can get this into your being, into your bones as how you see the world, in the land of the blind, guys, the one-eyed man or woman is king or queen. If you can see what is, you can with certainty move in the direction of what is, and that's going to increase the probability you'll get the outcomes that you want. So once I got this, right, this is the mental map that I just shared with you that I used after my mom had her brain bleed, moved, and within 5 years was doing 100 deals a year with 80% being from listings sold.
Aaron, I want to say one thing. I'm humbled by being around you. I appreciate people that are amazing at what they do, and you have very precise language. What you just went over, I think most coaches would take 3 to 4 hours to explain, and you explained it in a few minutes, and it hit home completely. So I want to say that after meeting with you, I am going to up my game. And that's what amazing people do in this world, is when you come in contact with the real deal, you immediately say there's something more in me. So I just want to say thank you for that. Okay?
Yeah, my pleasure, brother.
I want to touch on something. Why are you calling it a mental map and not a business map or a real estate map? Why is that language so congruent with your message?
Yeah, because what I'm aware of is accomplishing anything is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. So it's 20% how to do something and 80% the way that you're thinking about it. So the greatest thing that you can get from a teacher, mentor, coach, whatever you want to call it, is access to the way that they think. Because the way that they think allows them to do what they do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what I mean by mental map. And it's like, it's like you put on, if I had glasses right now, you put on a different set of glasses, you're like, oh, like I don't, right? You see things totally different. I remember I had a guy who was telling me, he was a golfer, right? And we were talking about this other golfer who was very good. And he's like, I want you to understand that even though we're playing on the same course, he has different shots than I do. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, he sees the course differently than I do. Yeah. That's why he's able to do what he does, because he can drive it 300 yards at one time. I can only do it 220. So he has a different view, a different mental map of the game, right? And that's powerful, guys. Like, I'm aware, like, building wealth it's mental, it's not physical. Like, it's just digits on a screen, guys. When was the last time you touched cash? Like, it's just an idea.
Yeah. Mental map. And if you can't create it in your mind, if you can't create it internally, there's no way in hell you're going to create it in the external world.
Yeah, 100%. And to circle back, because this is great, because I'm noticing our time, back to that movie, The Matrix, right? So the whole movie, Morpheus is trying to convince Neo that he's the one. He's like, dude, you're the one, you're going to save us from like complete annihilation. Okay. And the whole movie, Neo is doubting it. Yeah. Nah, dude, it's not me. Like, you got the wrong guy, Justin. What are you talking about? It's just little old me. It's not me. And this culminates in a scene where he goes in and he does something that like is sudden death to most people. And they start to fire at him, right? If you've seen that movie, and he puts his hand up and the bullets stop. And he grabs one, he's like, oh, that's interesting. And then the rest drop to the floor. And back at the mothership, the Nebuchadnezzar, right? Everybody, the zeros and ones are going down. It's going crazy, right? Like, oh my God, what's happening? And Morpheus leans in and says, he's starting to believe. There's a saying that says when you believe it, you'll see it. Right? It's when you'll see it when you believe it. No, when you believe it, you'll see it. So it took me 10 years to convince myself, 10 years to convince myself that I could grow 7 figures selling real estate.
When you believe it, you will see it. That comes from my man, Dr. Wayne Dyer. So he's he's my mentor, my coach. Couple things. I think you're a perfect example of sometimes we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. So I loved your story at the beginning of how you started in the industry, but look what you were able to accomplish over a decade. And the blueprint wasn't external. It wasn't in the workshops or the numbers. It was in your internal success map. Like, what are the truths and the principles that you are going to live by? You
100%.
Like and send it home?
Yeah, 100%. And like, I would propose like kind of your self-image, the way you see yourself. There's a book called by Maxwell Maltz, right? I'm blanking on the book's name, but he was a plastic surgeon. Yeah. And what he would do is he would do plastic surgery, and beauty's about symmetry. Yeah. And he would make people's noses like perfect, symmetrically perfect, but he'd hold up a mirror and 50% of them would be like, oh, this is great, I look wonderful. 50% would be like, I still feel ugly. Yeah. So what he became aware of is that it's psycho-cybernetics. What he became aware of was that it was their self-image. They had an ugly self-image. It's how they saw themselves. Even though he can make them physically beautiful on the outside, their image of themselves in their head was not of somebody who could stand in a room and put a hand up and bullets stop, right? And fall to the floor.
Yes. Aaron, that's a whole nother topic. Would you be willing to come back on and do a whole discussion on psycho-cybernetics as far as self-image?
Yeah, 100%.
I would love that. Aaron, tell them where they can find you and the best advice you could give them for the next 6 weeks, man. Like drop the mic on what they should do in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah. So in terms of what you could do in the next 6 weeks, because that's really what's most important. My intention is to add value and make this a productive and use of your non-refundable precious breaths. Because keep in mind, guys, the average human gets 27,550 days on planet Earth. It's about 75 years in the industrialized world. Women have a tendency to go a little bit more than men, but that's what's average. I'll be 40 December 1st, so that means I've used half. Whatever's left, you're going to sleep through a third of it. Yeah. So what I want you to understand is whatever it is that you want to do, like get after it. There's not a lot of time, right? Like go for it and go for it fully. And, just recognize that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And, there's typically a few ways that we can get in our own way. One is we scare ourselves. We tell ourselves terrible stories of things that are going to happen in the future. Two is we compare ourselves. We put ourselves down by comparing ourselves to other people, right? So just notice those things and recognize like nobody deserves your compassion more than you do. And if I can help you or be of assistance in any way, like I'm here to serve, you can find me at Aaron Novello on Instagram. We have a podcast, right? The Aaron Novello podcast. That's on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and on YouTube. And and at aaronnovello.com, which is the kind of coaching website that we have.
Aaron, I appreciate you. I'm not saying this to stroke your ego. You crushed it today. You brought so much value. Like, leave this little meeting on a high, man. Like, seriously, take this energy that you brought today. Something amazing is going to happen for you today because of how much value you brought us. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. And here's what's true is when you become a blessing in other people's lives, your life gets blessed in return. So go be a blessing, guys.
Thank you, Aaron.
Appreciate you.